will send us to this horse and pony show.
Okay, thank you so much. All right.
I'm finished. Okay. You don't have to learn that rule.
Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda. Were there any public comments on the agenda? Any public comments on the agenda from the audience?
Antonio Wilson. I don't see on the agenda, since we're following the Lawson Act and we're following the law, I don't see anything on the agenda by appointing a mayor pro tem. And that should have been done at the absolute first meeting. So I'm not sure why we don't have it here. So
If you all would like to add to the agenda the appointment of a mayor pro tem, we can entertain a motion for that at this time.
I'll make a motion that we have appointment of mayor pro tem.
Okay, we have a proper motion. Is there a second? All right, we have a proper motion by Councilman Wells, a second by Councilwoman Fountain to add to the agenda the appointment of a mayor pro tem. Gerald, may we have a roll call vote, please, to add this item to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, are there any other public comments on the agenda from the audience?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. All you know me. And I, just for the sake of myself and others that are, I know in here, just start, this is a new council, okay? We're starting a whole new fiscal year. Can we just get it right? Any other meeting that I have ever been into, attended anywhere across the state, nation, you can add items to the agenda. You can. Because there may be new things that come up, but for the sake of peace, can we start this thing off right so we can get this water situation in Tallulah right?
Thank you so much. Any other public comments on the agenda? All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the July 9th, 2026 regular meeting minutes. Are there any questions, additions, deletions, suggestions to the July 9th minutes? Stated that the item I spoke about last time in the meeting is not in the minutes. Okay, so you want added to the agenda your comments about Mr. Odom's position. Okay. Are there any other corrections?
On the second page, on the third paragraph, it says appointed area, we have, said, what we be prepared to say, we have to serve as office, say, put the sentence out.
Anything else, sir? anyone else have any other corrections to the minutes?
I'll entertain a motion that we will adopt these minutes from the July 9th meeting with the necessary correction.
Okay, we have a proper motion. Is there a second? Okay, we have a proper motion by Mr. Watson, second by Mr. Morris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's go ahead and address the items that we added to the agenda. The first is the renaming of the Vicksburg Tallulah Regional Airport to the Dan Fordyce Airport. Again, Mr. Fordyce was a huge part of that airport, worked a lot with the pilots, with veterans, with everybody associated with the airport. The police jury has already voted to rename the airfield, and tonight is the opportunity for the council to discuss that matter and then make a vote. So, first of all, are there any comments from the council regarding the name change? Okay. Are there any comments from anyone in the audience? So the item is to change the name of the Vicksburg Tallulah Regional Airport to the Dan Fordyce Airfield or Airport. Okay. Does anyone else in the audience have any comments? Okay, at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the name change of the Vicksburg Tallulah Regional Airport to the Dan Fordyce Airport. We have a proper motion by Ms. Jackson.
Second.
And a proper second by Mr. Watson. Since this is a item that should have a roll call vote, Gerald, can you please give us a roll call?
Yes.
Okay, motion did carry. Thank you all for that. The next item that we have added to the agenda is the selection of a mayor pro tem. That is up to the council. I will tell you that my recommendation would be for Mr. Watson to be the mayor pro tem. Okay, hold on just one second. Hold on just a second. I was very clear in saying I do not have a vote in this. However, as mayor, I can say what I recommend. And I'll tell you why I recommend that. The mayor pro tem is someone that has to be in town. Mr. Watson is...
Point of order.
Okay, hold on. Hold on just one second.
That the mayor pro tem is the city council decision. It is not the mayor's recommendation. The Lord's Name states on several occasions clearly states that the mayor pro tem is the council recommendation, not a mayor's recommendation. That has to come from the council. If the mayor did not make a recommendation, it will mayor pro tem.
Okay.
That comes from the council. So as a council member, I nominate myself to Mayor Wells as a candidate for mayor pro tem.
Okay, we have a proper nomination. Is there a second? Okay, we have a proper second. Gerald, are there any other nominations? Okay, Gerald, can we have a roll call vote, please? Yes.
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 Okay. Councilman Wells is now the mayor pro tem. Typically, we have the mayor pro tem as a signer on the accounts to help out in case either myself or Mr. Odom is not available. So we will take care of that with Councilman Wells. Next item on the agenda is the approval of a resolution to apply for a grant with the Delta Regional Authority States Economic Development Assistance Program, CDEP, for comprehensive upgrades or repairs to the HVAC system for the Tallulah Madison Community Center. As all of us know, we're all sitting in here right now. It's a little warm in here. Over the last 2 weeks, we have had individuals go up to see if the air conditioning could be fixed. The units are so old that we really are just putting good money after bad, and so it's really time to get some new units for this. I did not know that this particular grant would cover HVAC. Reached out to the folks at DRA to ask that question. They did say that the grant could be used for that, and in order to apply for the grant, we have to have a resolution. So, are there any comments or questions from anyone on the council? Are there any comments from anyone on the council? Everyone has in? Okay. District 1? Okay. District 2? Number 6? Yes. Yes. Okay, so hold on, guys. Hold on. We've got several conversations going and the audience already can't help. What we're doing right now is voting on a resolution to apply for a DRA grant for new units to the air conditioning, the HVAC system for the community center. So right now we're on. Right now we're on. Okay, I'm going to ask everybody in the audience, please don't speak out. We understand that the acoustics in here are not very well. We understand that, but we're trying to do this as orderly as we can. Okay, so District 1, your comments, ma'am?
Oh, I said I believe it would be a good estimate. It's a grant, and it's for the community center.
Absolutely.
Right.
Would you mind sending the mic down? District 2?
Yes, my comment, where my portion is it solely for the community center only,
Yes.
nothing else? So they are gonna get a grant according to what the cost of repairing the AC at
Right.
the community center?
Yeah, a cost estimate and everything will have to be prepared for the project itself.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Pass this down to District 3.
Really, no comment. We're talking about a grant. We're applying for a grant, and so this is not costing us anything. And we use this building quite a bit, and I've sweated it out in many programs and situations. So this is just to apply for a grant, so we're certainly in favor of that.
District 4 and District 5.
Yes, I have a comment. I have no problem applying for the grant. I'm all for it. But I have concerns when we allocated funds to the repairs and maintenance of the community center. And every time I question at the end of the year about the amount of monies that we spent on the community center and the repairs, on what we spent on, the answer has always been the air conditioning unit. That's always been the answer. We got a $50,000 grant that we used. We worked on the floors and some other things that we did. But I don't think we spent the entire amount of money that was allocated for community center repairs. So when we look at the amount of money that we're doing for repairs and maintenance at the community center, what all are we spending and what all are we repairing when we're spending this funds for the community center? So yes, we need the grant, but we have to also find out where's the dollars that we're saying we're allocating and spending on repairs and maintenance for the community center. Because we can get a grant and then we still don't do what we're supposed to do with it. Because we had a $50,000 grant that we started with doing the floors. And we haven't received a report on how much of that $50,000 has been spent on renovations at the community center. So we can get a grant, but when are we going to ever see how that money was spent? what it was spent on. That's why I asked for bills for payment, so we can have a true recollection, a true reconciliation of the monies that we've been awarded.
Okay, so at a prior meeting, you did ask that question. I did tell you that about $19,000 of that money has been spent, and you did actually make a comment after that about that amount. So you are aware how much has been spent out of that $50,000. Hold on, I didn't interrupt you. What I'm saying now is, folks, the units that we have on top of this building, they're shot. Okay, there's no sense in putting more money into them. We need 2 brand new 20-ton units and probably 1 5-ton unit. We're going to have to get a crane to get up there and take these things down, so we're going to need a substantial amount of grant money, and I think that we could get that through this grant. So, are there any comments from the audience on this particular item prior to the council voting?
You are going to make sure they are brand new, not refurbished or cash.
Yes. If we get the grant money, we put in for new units, yes.
And what's the total price of it?
We haven't, the cost estimate isn't done yet.
And would they also replace the ducts that need to be replaced?
The project will have to take everything into consideration.
Councilman Ware, have you got the bill to receipt that shows what it was spent on?
No, sir.
Why not?
We proposing an ordinance now that we can see bills for payment. In future reference, once we get that approval, we'll be able to see.
Okay. If there's no more comments, is there a motion to approve? Yes, sir. CDAP, I'm not sure, probably, I would say no more than probably 3 months or so. I'm not exactly sure, so I can't tell you the time because I don't know.
So in the meantime, what do we do for our systems until we get that money awarded?
Yep, absolutely, that's,
Does the city have reserve to put towards our own units? And why are we continuing to have the mindset of a welfare system and not using our funds in the manner that we should be using our funds? And that's no offense to anyone in the room. We can't keep doing it the same way we've been doing it. It's time to put things in reserve, have funding available for things such as this. So I'm sure that, as a leader, you may not want to hear that. Show respect to citizens by looking and acknowledging and those things like that. And that's what causes division in our city. We talk about healing our city, but it starts from the top and goes down.
thank you so much. So this project is probably going to be upwards of $60,000 or $70,000. No, the city of Tallulah does not have that amount of money for this, which is why we're going to try to go after the grant funds. Are there any other comments from the audience? Okay, is there a motion to approve okay, we have a proper motion. Is there a second? Okay, we have a proper motion by Mr. Morris and a second by Ms. Fountain. Gerald, can we have a roll call vote, please? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the introduction of an ordinance establishing procedures for members of the City Council to place items on the agenda for regular meetings of the City Council, providing for compliance with the Larson Act and Louisiana Open Meetings Law, providing for the orderly conduct of municipal legislative business, and providing for related matters. Councilman Wells brought this ordinance to the council. This is for the council to have the opportunity at any time to place items on the agenda. He did give a outline of having items, at a certain amount of days to give to me. I will tell you all that even if you do not make the time frame that is listed in the ordinance, the item that you want will still be added to the agenda. And so I will be supporting this fully. At this time, Councilman Wells, since this is your ordinance, would you like to offer the motion for introduction?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Jackson, okay, second by Mr. Watson. Since this is the introduction of the ordinance, Jerome, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Okay, so the ordinance will go in the paper to allow the public to know when the public hearing will be held. It'll go in the paper on July the 30th. It'll run on the 30th, and so it will run in the newspaper on July 30th and again on August the 6th. That would satisfy the ordinance publication rules, and we can set a public hearing for August 13th. Is everyone okay with that? So we will have the public hearing for this particular ordinance on Thursday, August 13th. The public is invited to attend that meeting. And after the public hearing, the council will vote on the ordinance, and we will set an effective date, and it will go into place. Next item on the agenda is the approval of terminations and hirings for the police department. Our new police chief has made some new hires as well as some terminations. You all have those names on the agenda in front of you. Is there a motion to follow the police chief's recommendation? Okay, we have a proper motion by Mr. Morris. Sorry, Councilman Morris. Is there a second? Okay, we have a proper second by Councilwoman Foundy. Jerome, may we have another roll call vote, please? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Yes, sir. We have a comment from the.
For the termination of myself, I believe the name is spelled correct. It's G-E-R. I mean, I need you guys to correct it for me. Okay. Before council agrees to the hire, I just want to bring some things up to you guys. Talking to Mike. I just want to bring some things up to the council before you guys, and for the attorney to look into. You guys may want to tape this. According to Louisiana Revised Statute 40:2405, for full-time officers in the state of Louisiana, after 1 year working for a department, you can't work full-time as a peace officer, and after that, you have to go part-time for 3 years. And according to the hire date that I requested from the city of Tallulah, through the records, the officers' name and all of them at the price according to what they have. I will take that into consideration for you guys. You got last statute code. Full-time, you got to be post-certified for 1 year. You don't be post-certified, not in. You got 3 years as a part-time. I was just, I thought like they won't even back out. You can.
All right, so the attorney has asked if we can table this matter so that she can look into everything to ensure that everything is okay. And if that is all right with you all, we can entertain a motion. So, you made the original. Okay, all right. So, is there a motion to table this item pending the attorney? Okay. Proper motion by Mr. Morris, proper second by Mr. Watson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, we are down to now the discussion of the Tallulah Water Service. As I said, Senator Jackson is here with us, and I believe Mr. Robinson has made it as well. So I think we all are aware of the situation that we have with the Tallulah Water Service. Just go over some notes here. We went to court. Let me just start from the beginning. The prior council voted to go under a limited fiscal administrator before that council ended. We did go to court on that particular item, and the judge did deny the fiscal administrator. The Attorney General's office has refiled that case. The new court date is August the 14th, so that that item should be reheard again. So what we're going to do tonight is I am going to allow Senator Jackson to offer some comments to the audience. We will allow Mr. Robinson to offer some comments from the governor's office, and then the council will have their opportunity to ask any questions that they have, and then we will open up the floor to our constituents to also come up and ask their questions. So, Senator, thank you so much for coming. Do you want to use this?
Sure. You know, I hate standing. Well, I'm going to talk to everyone. Number one, thank you and congratulations to the mayor, the new council, the new mayor pro tem. I'm asking, before I make comments about the water, that this council and this mayor is given the choice to a chance to correct some things and to move Tallulah forward. I am, as I've always been, willing to work with everyone for the good of Tallulah. I don't think I need to give a history of the water because the people of Tallulah have lived it, point blank. Whether it's been the days that schools have been shut, became a major concern for both the local government and the state of Louisiana, to the point where water buffaloes have been brought in for certain public facilities, the correctional center and everything else. Tallulah has been through it. When I took office, I said this, and I meant it to all of my small towns, that water is not a privilege, it's a basic necessity. And that Tallulah and every city throughout this state should have access to clean water. The legislature, because I'm going to give this part of history, were set with a task because we had so many systems, mainly in North Louisiana, and especially in Northeast Louisiana, who was requesting infrastructure dollars for their water systems. The truth was that most of the time the state may give $2 million here, a $3 million project here, but because these systems are locally ran by these municipalities or by someone they privately contract to run them, that we generally will not fund entire systems because it would break the budget for the necessities that the state has to pay for constituents. But we have done it before. You saw us do it with St. Joseph, Louisiana, under Governor John Bell Edwards, and now we are attempting not to pay the full bill, but to help Tallulah get back on track. Now, what that means and what that looks like has been ever changing in the last year and a half, because when our former head engineer for Louisiana Department of Health came in, and I'm not being disrespectful, I presented this to you before on call, so hadn't been here for a year and a half to present to the constituents. Came in we asked for a report because we had been receiving so many complaints, rightfully so, as we visited about the water that you were receiving. She came in, she reported back to myself, the governor, Representative Johnson, Representative Francis Thompson, and others that were in the room, and the governor's staff and our staff, that Tallulah's system had about 6 months to a year before it collapsed if major repairs were not met. We asked basically, what does collapse mean? You know, are we going to be down for a month? She said, no, if this system's collapsed, it will go into a state of being irreparable, meaning we could see 6 months or more without water. That's when the governor declared a state of emergency, because we didn't want, and I pleaded, and I think if I remember, the city council was invited down. Every member of the city council and the mayor were invited down to the governor's office to make the plea for funds for the water system. Once that happened, under the state of emergency, GOSEP took over. We were coming to triage the water system so we would not run into the 6 months to a year of you being without water. Once the governor, the old statute required receivership. Okay, receivership is appointed by the court at the request of the state, GOSEP at the time, because it was an emergency, but it's a lot more weighty than a limited fiscal administrator. So as soon as the legislature changed the statute to a limited fiscal administrator, it allowed for every municipality, because it's just not yours in this situation, to remain in control of a lot more than it had before, while still receiving funds. Now, when that happened, we're in a moment of triage. Triage, we're thinking 6 months, and this system would be stable enough for the city council and everyone else to work with us to get it fixed. Well, every time they fix one thing, another thing collapsed. So at some point, Magnolia had to bring in skids. I know I'm not familiar with skids before they told me what it was, and I'm sure the average constituent like me wouldn't be familiar. But that is what's keeping your water system clean right now. With all the other repairs, skids are keeping it clean because it's running through a cycle to purify the water. Skids are temporary, but skids cost about 40-some thousand to 50,000 a month, okay, the set you have. With that being said, we have forecast, the state, engineers, Magnolia, and everyone else has forecast that you will need those skids for another year to year and a half. Because even going out to bid on your water system, right, on our water system, you have the public bid process that takes place, and every engineer has told us that it's going to be a year to a year and a half after the bid is awarded and work is done before a new system is up and running. So the estimate for the skids is $1.4 million for the time you're going to need it. Now, this is no secret. I don't believe the city is going to have $1.4 million to keep skids in place to keep the constituents having clean water during the time of even bidding out and repairing. Then another issue has come up. The state has paid under GOSEP. We reached our fiscal limit, which means the money that GOSEP can pay to triage the system, we hit the financial limit. To date, the state has paid somewhere between $4 and $5 million, rightfully so, because our community deserves clean water. But we got to the point where the governor moved us out of receivership and asked to go into a limited fiscal administrator, because the only place we could find more triage money that could also be used for a permanent system was a fund we put in place. If you remember, I started by saying there were so many communities who needed help with their water systems. So the legislature created a water sector fund, meaning instead of legislators having to constantly come before capital outlay and try to receive funds, water sector was a set of money set aside through some grants by the federal government, some with state money, to allow for municipalities to apply to repair their systems. And so we also set aside $10 million in a sub-fund. Now, Tallulah itself applied and received $5 million, I think it was, from water sector. That's for your permanent fix to your water plant, okay? That's for the permanent fix. That's sitting right now untouched, the $5 million that the city of Tallulah applied for. Then you all applied for grants and loans from the USDA. That money is still sitting untouched, even with the repairs that have been made. But the legislature created an emergency fund on the water sector, which is a water sector sub-fund. That sub-fund has sitting in it $10 million. That can be used for emergencies outside of the $5 million that you've already been awarded through the state's water sector program. That $10 million is what we're trying to tap into. The law said in order to tap into that sub-fund, you needed to be in receivership. But we went back as a legislature and changed the law to say you had to be under a limited fiscal administrator. Now, I want to be very clear because there's been a lot of talk about whether you're going to join with Walnut Bayou. That study was performed last year, and it was found that the city of Tallulah cannot combine with Walnut Bayou. So there's no plan in place, and we reported that to the council, I think then the former mayor and everyone else, that cannot happen because where they receive their water source from, the lines that would have to be built to bring it to Tallulah would cost more than repairing your system or replacing it. So that's out. There's no connection. Then there was a concern that Magnolia Water Company would take over your system and never return it. I think about 7 to 8 months ago, the time frame goes really long, that Magnolia said it will not take over your system. When the state pulls out, they will pull out, okay? So I want to address those two things because that's a lot of times the questions I'm getting when I'm here. Number one, are we going to have to connect and lose our water system, or is Magnolia ever going to leave our water system? You're never going to connect because it will cost too much, and Magnolia has expressed that they will not take over your water system permanently, okay? This is where we are. If I had money to pull out of the sky, where you didn't need a limited fiscal administrator, I would. But the fact is, not the majority, but on the unanimous passing of a law where we're trying to tap into money, the legislature unanimously voted that anyone that taps into the sub-fund must be under a limited fiscal administrator for the water only. Now, we had some trouble in court. The state's attorney, because you didn't object at the time, and there was a majority vote of the council who decided to go into limited fiscal administrator, he didn't believe he had to put on a lot of facts and a lot of evidence, right? But there were some other suits filed, and the judge wanted to take everything into consideration, which made it a full-blown trial. At that time, it was denied. I've requested, and I'm going to take ownership, that the state refile it. And I'll tell you why. Until we get back into session in 2027, there's nowhere else to pull money from but that sub-fund. Now, about a week ago, I received, just as the council received, a letter from Magnolia that if tonight the council didn't vote to go into the legislative the limited fiscal administrator, that they were going to pull out. This is not, for me, about Magnolia. This is what it means for Magnolia to pull out, is that we lose the skids that's keeping our water clean. And it also means that if we don't go into the limited fiscal administrator, we can't tap into the $10 million fund. Now, I'm not standing as your senator without offering anything. The state has given $4 or $5 million already to try to triage and keep the system clean. So if there was another place to get $1.4 million, let's talk about that first, to keep these skids up and running and rented and managed, I'd be here telling you we found it, right? However, it isn't right now. Secondly, after that 1.4 million, there is about 8.6 million left in that fund. That speaking with the governor, who he has representatives here, he's saying, look, we can access that toward keeping the system triaged and helping to rebuild the system. This is just the first step. At some point, when we're stable enough and we have the funding set out for the limited fiscal administrator and the skids, this system has to go out for bid. I can't remember, we've gone through so many estimates. Mary, do you remember what the last estimate was on rebuilding the system? Yeah, rebuilding the system totally. Yeah, I know it was 26, but I think it got tweaked a little bit. Because what we found was some of the triage that has happened should count toward that 26 million. Now that's what we've been told lately, okay? So we know we're looking between, 22 and 26 million, but we can't mark it because until it goes out for bid and a company bids on it and tells us what they can use that the state has already repaired, we won't know the actual amount. It's upward of 26 million, but that's not a hardcore number. Then when you bid, I think you've secured as a town, what council, 11 point, I always get this number wrong with USDA money. 7.8 USDA money, some of it is a loan, and some is a grant, and 5 million water sector, and $1 million appropriation that we put in the budget. So when you add 7.4 million plus 5 million, you get 11.4 million. Then if you add the million that we put in to appropriation, you get 12.4 million. Understand that the state and its governor has committed to make up the shortfall to rebuild your system. So I'm coming to you and the council saying, look, it's not a pretty thing. I know you're new, but at some point we have to decide whether we want the skids to stay in place, whether we want the governor to keep his commitment to make up about 12-point-some million to rehab the system totally and continue to fund the skids and tap into that money. Or, I'll give you the other option. The money that's secured from USDA, we've had numerous calls with them and with councilmen and the mayor and the former mayor and the new mayor on the call. The 11.4 million combined in the regular water sector program and the USDA program can only be used to rebuild the system. It cannot be used for the triage work that's being done to keep the system running. So it is the council's choice and the citizens' choice whether you want to go into limited fiscal administrator and access the money, because that's state law. That is state law. And I know there was a lot of questions on whether or not we had tapped into the fund without limited fiscal administrator. You received your letter from Magnolia. They have not been paid from the point that GOSEP paid them up to where they could pay them with state funds, and GOSEP is a state entity, okay? And where we are now, we're trying to get into the legislative water sector sub-fund that the state law requires a limited fiscal administrator. Or you have the other choice, which is not to vote on the legislative fiscal administrator. And you still have your 11.4 million that can only be used to rebuild the system. The skids then pull out, and we immediately go back to brown water. That's just the truth, okay? That's what's keeping our water clean at this point. Or the city council may vote and say, we can keep the 40,000 or 50,000 a month worth of skids here without state funding. Because if you can, I don't know your city finances, okay? You may feel as though what you can collect and what you have now can keep up with repairs that need to be made and keep the skids in place. Now, I would urge you, from what I've heard from previous council members and the mayor, is that you don't have that money. The city doesn't have that money. We can make it as little as possible, but this is not politics. The state didn't come in because they wanted to run a water system. The state came in at the begging and pleading of myself, Representative Johnson, Representative Francis Thompson, and a whole lot of citizens who were emailing our office, calling me when I'm on up and down the road, showing me the water that was coming out of their faucet. The state didn't come in because we just wanted to spend $4 or $5 million. I really believe the state should spend all it can on us, right? But this was the urgent need. Now, simply put, I love everybody, but that's what we are. So to debate what we are, unless the city has, respectfully, $40,000 a month sitting to the side to keep the skids in place and to repair anything else that breaks, and 20-some million, you have 11.4 million right now, but the rest of the 20-some million to rehab the water system, and maybe you have a plan we don't know about. But if the city council takes a vote that they no longer want the state involved, that's your right as an elected official. I can only come and give you a state report. That is the state's report. But you have to make the decision. But do understand that our budget is closed for this year. Right? This is the law. And some people may not be thrilled with Magnolia Water Company. We didn't get to select it, GOSEP selects it. No state rep, no state senator selects once you're under a state of emergency who comes in. They pull out. If we don't have the money from the legislative sub-fund, water sector sub-fund, to pay the $40,000 and $50,000 a month for skids and to keep up repairs, and then we have to go back as a municipality and find whatever additional money we need past the $11.4 million to totally rehab a system, that is the council's choice. I urge you not to make that choice because of the citizens, and you deserve clean water. But I'm not going to belabor the issue. This is your council meeting. That is the state report. I'm urging you as your state senator, knowing that the state has an investment of $5 million in already, trying to invest as much of the $10 million sub-fund or all of it because no one else has requested it. That's why it was a good place to request that money, okay? To vote to go into limited fiscal administrator. With the guarantee that Magnolia has publicly said they do not want to run your water system forever. And the analysis of cost says that it is not feasible in any way to connect with Walnut Bayou. But those are the choices before us. I urge you to take the state's help and to continue to take the state's help so the constituents of our town continue to have clean water. That's just it.
Stay right here with the senators.
Okay.
No comment. Good evening, Senator.
Good evening.
Mr. Morris, District 2. You do a lot of numbers out there, and I like to track and digest numbers. So for clarification, $5 million from the state that's sitting there up that can't be touched for us, $5 million that's from the state, correct?
Okay, so there's $5 million that the city applied for from the water sector program. That is the regular water sector program. When you applied for that money, it was for the rehab or replacement of the system. That money can be touched once your rehab goes out to bid, but I forgot to tell you the history of that, which I'm sure you're aware of. When the city secured that $5 million from the water sector, okay, plus the $7.4 million from USDA, the water system went out to bid. Every bid came back much higher than the $11.4 million. So the city was doing their part years ago to try to replace your system, but I think what happened, the city got caught up in that big COVID inflation. And so when the bids start coming back, there was no money, there was not enough money with what the city had secured to replace your system. In the meantime of that, that's when the engineer came in, because your water was still brown, and realized that your system was about to collapse. So you have $5 million that can only be used for the rehab or replacement of your system and water sector. You have $7.4 million. Now the water sector money is not a loan, it's a grant under the water sector program that the legislature created. Then you have $7.4 million from USDA. That is a loan plus a grant, a low interest grant that USDA always offers, and sometimes municipalities are approved for. 7.8, I apologize. So you're sitting right now with 11.8 million. Every bid that came in a couple of years ago, was over that 11.8 million. So the city could not proceed with rehab or replacement of its system. Now, that's that. The last number I threw out was the legislative sub-fund of the water sector, which we consider an emergency fund, which unanimously the legislature voted to take it out of requirement of a receivership and into requirement of a limited fiscal administrator. That $10 million has never been accessed by any municipality in this state. Tallulah was the first through the governor's office to request access to that money. You can get up to $10 million. No one else has requested it. We were first to draw on asking for it, but the law does require a limited fiscal administrator. That's the $10 million, okay? The other $4 to $5 million is what the state spent while you were in a state of emergency with GoSell. That's why you've seen improvements to the system. And that's where we are. Now, the last number I threw out is probably what's vitally important for your right now decision. Is that right now, we have skids that are rented, that are connected to your water system, that are $40,000 to $50,000 a month. Estimated, we owe Magnolia some of that money now, because we asked them to keep them there in good faith while we went through this process. But it was estimated when they were originally placed that you were going to need 24 months of that skid, okay? The reason why it's estimated that you will need we will need 24 months with those skids in place is this. You're going to go out to bid. That process is going to take anywhere from 3 months or more. Once the bid happens, the state has to locate whatever money over the 11.8 million, because the city has no more access to additional funds, okay? Once those funds are located, it is estimated that the repairing or replacement or rehab of your system will take a year and a half. So those skids cannot be removed without jeopardizing clean water until the system is fully rehabbed. And that's all the estimates, and that's why you see all the numbers and all the months coming up.
Okay, so I'm following you on that. One clarification. The 7.8 USDA and the 5 million from the state grant, that's 12.8. So that's untouched.
That is untouched.
Right. You mentioned something about another 10 million that nobody else applied for.
That's what we are now.
Right. And so together we're talking about 22.8.
You talk about 22.8, but understand, unless you want to the fiscal. Okay, go ahead. Yes. Go ahead.
So we're talking about 22.8. So you're saying, for the record, is that if we go with the limited administrator whose solely and only job is to watch out money y'all give us, not nothing else to do with city tools, but just the
water.
Just, I'm saying,
the collections and what we give.
Right. So that being said, so we had $22 million so to build, to have a new, so it can't be new. So
this is okay. Take the 10 million. Some of it will be used toward the new system. Some of it will be used to keep.
Build or rehab.
Yes. Well, it depends on what your bids come in at. Okay. You have to keep the skids, which is temporary, in place for 24 months. It is estimated that 24 months is going to take 1.8 million of that 10 million. Now, You should say, oh, well, Senator, that means we have 8.2 million. Well, anything else that may break has to come out of that 10 million to keep your water system going. Because if you notice, we've shut down to do things for a day here and a day there. That's because we have things that come up and break. This is an old system, so understand, until the new system is in place, you are keeping an old system running until such time as the new system is in place. If what you collect in water bills, if the repairs exceed that, then you're going to have to go into that 8-point-some million to replace it. Well, the state will, okay? If something else breaks. So the best way I can say it is, say if you're collecting $10,000 a month in water bills, which that is a number. I don't know how much you're collecting. I have not seen the city's budget, okay? Let's say if you're collecting $10,000 a month and a repair comes in for $30,000 a month, okay? That $10,000 a month also covers your city workers that are on site with Magnolia. So then whatever is over that, the state will tap into that 8-point-some million to fix it, so we maintain clean water for our constituents until such time as the new system is built. But what I did say that was very key, I said in the governor's face, and I said, you know these bids are over, okay, point blank. What do we have? When we go out for bid, is the state committed to fixing this system? And he told me yes. So that's the other money that's on the line. Well, we have to find it if the 10 million is not enough. Once we make every repair and keep the skids in place. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Right. So going back to what I'm saying, and like I said, I want everybody to be clear, because nobody in Tallulah can answer questions about water, what we take in, what's the cost of one. So I'm trying to make sure that everyone is clear. So going back to the 22.8 that I'm speaking of, we can take $2 million out and say that's what it's going to take to do the skids for 2 years. Right. So we're talking 20 million. So if bids come to build a brand new at 30 million, so we're 10 million off.
Right.
So then if we the city, if we all share responsibility, so if we're responsible for raising 10 million, whether it's raising rates, but to pay as a tax, 10 million go with that 20 million, we kill the water problem. Is that right?
No. You can only raise the rates based on the rate study, which it has been done. Now, rate studies happen every year, and the state doesn't do those rate studies. That's independent. So that's why I said I asked the governor, if with everything you're collecting legally, because you shouldn't raise your water rates without an independent rate study that was done the last time you raised them. And to give you a history on that, there were rate studies showing that the city of Tallulah should have been incrementally raising their water rates, and it was never done. That might be a part of the reason, because no one can really figure out how this system got into ill repair. But what we were able to sit at a table and say, those water rates should have been raised when those suggestions were made, so you could have the money to keep your system in good repair, okay? That was one of the issues. So what the governor has committed in a room is, hey, when everything's said and done, whatever's left, we're going to find it. Whatever's remaining that's needed, we're going to find it. Now, I cannot say to you, and I never want to give the constituents some misinformation, the water rates are not raised based on the state. The water is raised based on an independent study. Unfortunately, a lot of our small towns, as councilmen, aldermen, they did not feel like the constituents can handle those rates. And so they weren't raised over years, and then water systems went into ill repair. So we don't know what really happened with the city of Tallulah. I took the perspective of, let me look forward and get this done, instead of being an investigator and look backwards, because you didn't elect me to investigate, you elected me to bring money home and to take care of things. Yes? Right.
Excuse me. Let me get the final answer to my question. I'm done. So
Yes.
I'll be through once I'm clear.
Oh, no, I think you should make a well-informed decision. This is what I do. Yeah.
So, I'm just want to soak in $20 million roughly that we will have towards going forward for the plan.
Okay, yes, but you're saying for a new system.
Yes.
I add a clarification to that out of the $8 million that's going to be remaining in the sub-fund, if some repair is needed that's larger than the amount that you collect, it will have to come out of that fund. I cannot tell you that another repair to this system won't have to be made because we've had unexpected repairs the entire time.
Okay, but
Because we're dealing with an old
sure,
system.
Sure, 12.8. We definitely 12.8.
That's what you secured before the state came in. We cannot touch that. Your money that was secured, whether we went to water sector and spoke up for you or not, right, through the legislative process, we cannot touch that. The state does not touch that. That money is awarded for rehab or rehabilitation of a system.
I got a quick question.
Yes,
Senator, you said that the rates cannot be increased unless it's done by racially, correct?
correct.
According to the contract with the fiscal administrator, it stated that the fiscal administrator can go through the process of securing debt or doing debt, as far as establishing another debt service for the city.
Right.
So they can't do that, right?
Well, when they say debt services, that person is going to be the person helping to do the bidding, to get the bids out, and that person is going to be the one to accept the bid, and that's the securing of debt. Yes, the limited fiscal administrator is going to walk us through the process of getting the water system fixed.
Right.
You cannot get the water system fixed without that person securing the debt.
Okay, let's stay on one question. That individual will have the authority to begin to establish debt for the customers, am I correct? If they see the need.
Okay, as far as the repair and rehabilitation of the water
They can
system,
go through the
yes.
process of establishing more debt.
Yes.
Which means that the citizens will have to be able to pay more to cover that debt, am I correct?
Right now you have 12.8 million. I'm going to take it to you. Right now you have 12.8 million to rehabilitate the system. And then
Stay on my question. Can the fiscal administrator?
I'm sorry, I'm just not used to being cut off. I was
I know,
supposed
but
to be.
see, you're going around my question.
I'm not going around your
Okay,
question. You want me to give a pointed answer that I'm not going to be able to give.
Let me be direct with my question. I just want a direct answer. If the fiscal administrator determines that there needs to be debt taken out in order to rehab the plant, can that fiscal administrator do that without the permission or the authority of the council?
He or she cannot do that without going out to bid because that's the public law. Once it goes out to bid, the council is going to be able to see those public bids. The law states that the fiscal administrator or the council cannot usurp those public bids. They are under the same restrictions as the council. They cannot incur debt for you outside of the public bid laws, just as the council cannot incur debt over a certain amount without the public bid laws. What you have now in your 11.8 million plus whatever the state brings in is going to require everything to go out to bid. The fiscal administrator cannot arbitrarily go out and incur debt for you without following state bid laws.
So if they follow the bid process, according to you're saying, can they establish debt upon the citizens, the taxpayers, the ratepayers?
Well, generally what the fiscal administrators have done is they brought those bids back to the council.
Okay, can I just get a yes or no?
No, not really, because it's a bid law and they have to bring it before the council.
If the bid law, if they go through the process of going through the bid process and determines that rates need to be increased, can the fiscal administrator do it without the authorization of the council?
They would still need a rate study, and yes, in that instance.
Yes, they can do it, right?
Yes.
The answer is
In
yes.
that instance, you're saying incur debt.
Okay, now-
Incurring debt is not raising rates based on a study, independent study is not incurring of debt.
Right, so you mentioned rate study, I want to mention rate study. So then also, does that rule that you're talking about, does it apply to a private entity? For instance, if Magnolia stays in place, can they raise the debt without coming before the citizens? I'm not sorry, not debt, water rates.
No. The only person that will be able to do that under limited fiscal administrator is the limited fiscal administrator with the assistance of the council. They have to report to the council.
Let me add something about water rates.
No, I want to have this conversation because every councilman needs to.
I just want to add, as a condition of our water sector grant, a water rate study has to be done, okay? So it won't be the fiscal administrator. That is a part of the grant. It has to be done.
Also, the USDA grant and loan requires a water, and I forgot about that. Also, the USDA loan and grant requires a water rate study to be done.
Okay, when we look at the contract that GoSell begins, matter of fact, we're supposed to have a meeting with GoSell on May the 19th to discuss all the concerns and issues that the council had. And I think, as Mr. Revere here, you said somebody from the governor's office. Who's here from the governor's office?
We have 2 people here from the governor's office, but the governor's executive council is here.
Okay, so the meeting on May the 19th was canceled by you guys. What's the council by? We received a letter saying Clay Revere canceled the meeting because of a possible open meetings violation. I'm saying
It's a state entity, so he's saying that the
whoever it is, that meeting was canceled on May 19th. There were some legitimate concerns that we had as a council in response to the contract that was being proposed by the state. So when that meeting was canceled on May the 19th, it was never rescheduled. And the thing that I get from it, I could be wrong, and that's why even in the contract, it says the city of Tallulah would have to enter into an agreement with a third-party contractor. So you're telling me that I have to take money from a program, then you're also mandating that I enter into a contract with a third party, then you're telling me who the third party has to be.
Mrs. Councilman Wells, we're not telling you that.
Yes, it is.
Let me finish.
Yes,
unanimously, the legislature voted for that. And that's just not Tallulah. The law under the water sector sub-program says that any municipality that receives these funds, that's the law. It's not the governor's office coming to tell you. It's not your senator coming to tell you. It's a unanimous vote of the legislature.
I'm not saying who's saying it. What I'm saying in the contract, it says you have to enter into a contract with a third party.
Right.
And according to that contract, the contract told us who the third party was going to be.
That's correct.
Right. So
because GoSell selected that company because we were in a state of emergency.
But no, this is for the extension for us to go.
Oh yes, for the extension. The
also,
contract does say that because they're already in place. They're already in place. Go ahead.
See, no one has let me finish. No one has let me finish. And so my concern is when we're talking about keeping a third party in place. For one thing, Magnolia has never come to the council, has never come to the city to talk to us about anything that took place. No one from GoSell has came and talked about anything that took place. Then in the contract, GoSell wanted us to go back and backdate the contract to February 16th, and we got it in April. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on from the state that was not right. So if you have $10 million, and what we're not telling is that the $10 million is not going to a long-term infrastructural improvement.
I just think
so when we're saying, Councilman Morris, that $10 million is not going to go toward the plan. So we're still going to have to find monies, if that's the case, to fix our plan. That $10 million is only in case something breaks down. So if nothing breaks down, we don't get to use it.
No, that is not the case. The first part of the $10 million, the $1.8 million, is guaranteed to go towards the water skids. Now, the other $8.2 million, as the city needs, it will be accessed. If there's remaining of that $10 million, it can go toward the rehab and replacement of the water system.
But out of that $10 million, it says we will have to pay the fiscal administrator for at least 24 months, right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's what covered costs. Then also we have to pay all the other administrative costs. We have to have a project manager that is, according to the contract, that's going to have to be paid. You got a project manager. It's a lot of fees that we're going to have to cover that's going to take away from the monies that we're supposed to be able to use.
This is state emergency dollars. And let me say this, because I can get into the if and ands, but this is the truth. The state is only here because Tallulah did not keep its system in good repair. That's why the state is here. Because the city of Tallulah, whether it be former mayors, former councilmen, did not keep its system in repair. You don't see us in the city of Monroe right now. You don't see us in the city of Lake Providence because their systems are still considered in good enough repair where they get grants from the state and are able to repay them.
Okay.
In a perfect world, the state would give you $2 or $3 million and say, fix your system. In an imperfect world, which is what we were experiencing, schools were shutting down, constituents were complaining, washing machines, everything we know in homes was breaking down because of a water system. And so I'm passionate when I say this. No, Councilman Wells, this is never going to be the perfect situation for the city of Tallulah nor myself.
Okay.
Because we need the state help more than other cities. And we don't need the state help because the state came in and broke a system.
Okay,
We need the state help because previous administrations, whether it be the tax dollars that were lost or whatever reason, didn't keep the system in repair.
Okay. One of my biggest concerns is when the state came to help, an option from the state was never for the city to tap into another water source. So why wasn't that an option? Because that's one of the biggest concerns that I have.
We studied it.
Sarah mentioned that earlier. That was something that was done initially to see whether or not y'all could tap into Walnut Bayou.
No. It said merge with Walnut Bayou.
And then, we looked at merging with Walnut Bayou, and we looked at running lines from the source that Walnut Bayou pulls its water to Tallulah. The cost was astronomical. And that's what, so neither one.
What was that cost? Everybody says it's astronomical. Everybody says it costs a lot of money, but nobody's ever shown us anything
to
in
tap
there.
into Walnut Bayou, it was about $30 million to merge with Walnut Bayou.
I'm not talking about merge. I'm talking about tap into the same water sources. Okay. Because right now, it's going to be almost impossible to actually clean the water. See, you all talking about the wash machine. You all talking about the water heater. Nobody's talking about being able to drink the water. See, I'm not talking about the wash machine. When are we going to start talking about getting water that we can actually consume? Because that's not coming from any.
Maybe I ask you this because maybe we're in a point of confusion. At some point, Tallulah had good water with the water source they had. Am I wrong? Years ago?
What I'm saying is, every time I begin to say something, I get interrupted constantly. And my biggest concern is the state has never said in order to tap into the Cotfield aquifer or to tap into the Sparta aquifer, it's going to cost us X amount of dollars.
Go ahead.
We have never seen those numbers.
Okay.
And if the state is really concerned about helping us to get safe, clean drinking water, why aren't we looking at another water source? Because I talked to a lot of guys deal with water. They say it's going to take an exceptional amount of stuff to really clean that water with all the stuff that we have in it from farm irrigation.
Okay.
So why isn't that an option? How much does that cost? And when is the state going to tell us about the effects of the water that we are consuming? So if we're going to talk about helping us, let's lay out all the bare facts. Exposure to iron, manganese, arsenic, all those things over an extended period of time, how much of an impact is it going to have on the residents of Tallulah? Compared to when we can spend millions of dollars to get another water source. I don't care about how much it costs, I care about life. So it shouldn't be $1 put on because it costs so much money, we're not going to use another water source.
We operate within a balanced budget. We're not the federal government, Councilman Wells.
Well, that can become a federal thing. We can partner with the federal government.
And they did, and I think Congressman Letlow has sent down how much money?
$1 million.
$1 million. The bottom line is, you're asking us to go outside of our state budget. You're asking us to go outside and unbalance the state budget, which the legislature cannot do. We have a constitutional duty to create a balanced budget. Now, I will tell you the first thing we looked at was whether you could connect with Walnut Bayou water system without Walnut Bayou taking you over. That was $30 million. I think $32, $36 million. And so that was the shortest line to connect with a different water source and come over to Tallulah. Well, you're talking about $32 to $36 million. Tallulah doesn't have that, nor does the state right now. So that's why that option was not. So any other thing of just running you to another water system is more lines being laid. You have to acquire right-of-ways, which takes up to a year or more. And this is what they told me, the state engineers. You have to pay those landowners for right-of-ways, and then you have to lay all of the infrastructure to pull that water in. So we knew if we could tap into Walnut Bayou without them taking you over was costing 32 to 36 million. Anything else would take a year or two, and it would all before you went out to bid, and also it would make it to where you had to acquire additional right-of-ways. So when the state looked at the 32 to 36 million, plausibly, if that was too much for the city of Tallulah and the state to carry, then anything else was going to be too much. That's the simple, short answer.
Okay, now, why did the state back out on the meeting on May the 19th? Yes, now.
All right, so my name is Brett Robinson. I am a deputy chief of staff for Governor Landry. I don't represent GOSEP. GOSEP was the one that asked about stopping that meeting due to open meeting concerns, public meetings. And so, just so you know, I'm sorry. Just so you know, I mean, we can't meet with the council and have a quorum separately unless it's noticed. And so, if we would have had that conversation, we would have violated the open meetings law. Y'all would have violated it. It would have been a fine. The citizens wouldn't have known what we talked about, et cetera, et cetera. That's why GOSEP said we don't want to have the meeting.
Can I ask a question?
But,
Quick question.
yeah, go ahead.
So you mean to tell me the governor's office or GOSEP didn't know when they scheduled that meeting with the council that to meet with the entire council that there would have been a meeting, and what we could have easily done, instead of canceling on Monday, the day of the meeting, because I'm quite sure it didn't just come up on Monday. You could have said, instead of having the meeting on Monday, let's have it on Wednesday. But what ended up happening, this is what I'm telling you what I figured had happened. Because we had the fiscal review committee meeting on the 21st. Okay? So now the questions and the concerns that our attorney had and that the council had did not have to get answered because we assumed that the fiscal administrator would have been in place. Now all the questions that the city had as a council would not have to be answered by the city. And that's one of the issues that the judge had, was that the fiscal administrator didn't have to answer to nobody but the Attorney General's office.
So I just, there's nothing preventing any one of y'all from submitting questions to me or the GOSEP or anybody individually, as I think that actually be appropriate and we would avoid any kind of public meetings issues and could also provide responses. I'm here on behalf of Governor Landry to answer any kind of questions and to echo largely what the senator said. We're committed to Tallulah. Okay, we're trying to get the system restored, stabilized. That's why we've declared the state of emergency. The governor has continuously renewed that state of emergency here in Tallulah due to the water system. Okay, we went towards the Water Sector Commission to secure the $1.4 million for the skids. Just like the senator said, if those skids are removed, the water's going to turn it back to brown shortly. The extension of the lease, actually, the skids were going to be removed this month. Magnolia entered into an extension of the lease upon realizing that the Water Sector Commission had appropriated funds for Tallulah for the water system and contingent on the limited fiscal administrator being appointed. And so with that, they were able to keep that skid. According to Magnolia, those skids are fairly highly sought after, and many other entities like that skid. So we're trying to keep the skid here. If Magnolia leaves, that skid will likely go with them. Okay, and so we want to make sure that the skid remains here. And that $1.4 million from the limited fiscal administration would secure that for 2 years. I also want to add, this is something that the senator didn't mention, that 1.4 for the 2 years actually will go towards whatever permanent solution that would happen, that would result here. Okay, so that 1.4 is kind of like a pay-in, saying, okay, whatever we use going forward, that 1.4 is offset. Okay, so we're stacking the money. The senator mentioned all the different areas. Some of those funds are obligated in a certain way that can't be utilized completely to restore or rehab the water system plan. And so some of that may take some technical tweaks in front of the Water Sector Commission to make sure it's in the right posture that it can be moved in a certain way. We're also looking for additional sources of funds that could potentially pay what has the capital improvements that have occurred here. And so we're trying our best to identify as much funds as possible to help the system up to the water system up to the I just wanted to add, we've declared an emergency here, right? And I think if that skid filter was removed, the judge would clearly have said there's an emergency here. Okay, I'm not privy to the reasons that the judge made the ruling that he did, but the governor has declared this emergency, has continuously declared this emergency, renewed this emergency. So therefore, an emergency exists. That gets you the ability to go to limited fiscal administration. Limited fiscal administrator would come in, and they would be the person that would make decisions, whether it's finding a new operator. If there's an operator around that's could do it for cheaper, better, they can secure that. The limited fiscal administrator will look at the balance sheet, look at the funds, look at the revenues, decide, is it an expense problem? Is it a revenue problem? Is it a both problem? What's the best way to solve the problem? And so it's independent. They look at it solely. That is their one job daily, is to figure out how to secure and stabilize this system. And so with that, it does, if a limited fiscal administrator was in place, that $10 million that's in the water sector emergency sub-fund could be utilized. And I'm just telling you, I have heard of nobody else water system that's under limited fiscal administration or fiscal administration or receivership that can access it. So if y'all vote to have a limited fiscal administrator appointed and consent to it, then you can access the funds. The next water sector commission, the mayor, the city council, y'all can all come together and ask for additional funds from the water sector.
Okay, question. Okay, my question. When you look at the limited fiscal administrator, when you begin to look at the limited fiscal administrator that the state suggested or recommended, this individual had no water system experience, had no knowledge or no training dealing with government or municipal government. So this fiscal administrator was not going to be the one that was going to be directing the operations. Because if I have no water company, no water system experience, then how am I going to know what's in the water system? Then is it, what I mean, and I go back to the drinking water. Is it customary for a municipality's drinking water to be utilized or be accessed with farm irrigation?
With farm irrigation?
Yeah, the farm irrigation. It's farm irrigation. It's not customary, right?
I don't know the answer to that.
So okay, that's one of the answers we need, because the water in Madison Parish, out of the Mississippi alluvial, is considered farm irrigation. When I look at things, it doesn't say anything about drinking water. It labels it as farm irrigation. So that's why I say, even when we're talking about getting water from emergency fund, it's not going to get clean drinking water. So we can go with spending all kind of money on a plant, but it's not going to properly clean water for us to be able to drink. So when I look at a fiscal administrator who doesn't have any knowledge of water system experience, had none, when the judge questioned the state's attorney, didn't have any knowledge. There's a person that works for a tax commission. And the judge said, you mean to tell me you want me to place someone who has no water system experience over a municipality's water system? So when you all tell us to appoint a limited fiscal administrator, it needs to be someone who has an idea about water.
Amen.
All right. So the issue with the water system is a fiscal issue, right? It's also a safety issue, but it's a fiscal issue. So you have to have somebody that can solve the fiscal problem before you can solve the safety problem with the water system. And so there's not many people throughout this state that are going to be a fiscal administrator. That's just the bottom line. And the ones that have done it, they don't want to do it again. So yes, you want somebody that has an accounting background that can answer and figure out the financial questions and answer those questions and balance the balance sheet, figure out where the sources of funds can come and how to bring down the expenses, okay? But yes, the fiscal administrator would lean on an engineer, okay? It's my understanding that the RFQ's been put out, that there's potentially an engineer that will be secured in the near future. That would be somebody that would be somebody the fiscal administrator would lean on. Additionally, the limited fiscal administrator has access to the Attorney General, the legislative auditor, all sorts of additional people that they can reach out for resources. So obviously we would support whoever the limited fiscal administrator is. And if there is somebody else that y'all are aware of, by all means, put it forward.
Okay, now I have another question. You say fiscal finances. Magnolia stated that the city of Tallulah was default on the debt service payments. Are you all aware of that?
So there's a couple different ways that there's some technicalities where you can have a technical default on the bonds, okay? And so the bonds are paid by the revenues that come in through y'all paying y'all's water bill. So I'm not aware of a default on any payment because it's around $60,000 a month that y'all pay y'all's bond payments, okay? That comes from the water system. Yeah, I think in previous years y'all didn't raise the rate to the CPI index that's required by the bond covenants. So therefore you probably were in technical default, but it's my understanding that y'all raised the rates to include the CPI index. So I'm not aware of any other default.
I'll ask a question.
Sure.
So, paying this physical administrator, it's gonna come out the money you all giving us to repair?
It can come out of that.
It can.
Yes.
So, gee, what are they gonna be charging us on these rates? I was asking what was gonna be the person they put in place, how much he's gonna get of the money we're supposed to be doing our water system with, so.
So it's not a large amount. So typically, and this would be the first limited fiscal administrator. Normally it's a full fiscal administration where an individual is in charge of the whole city, town, or village government. And so those obviously takes more hours. With the water system, it's my expectation that would be less hours, but the actual rate is set by the judge. The judge determines the rate.
That's the farthest thing from the truth. That's not true. Because the judge asked the state, what is the salary for the fiscal administrator? And the state's attorney said they hadn't decided on the salary. They were going to wait till one was put in place. So the judge did not set the rate of pay for the fiscal administrator.
Well, there is no limited fiscal administrator right now. So so you couldn't have set a rate without one being appointed.
No. But the judge would not be the one that sets the rate. The judge asked the state's attorney, said, what is the rate of pay for the fiscal administrator? He said the attorney general and the treasurer had not decided. Maybe the state's attorney had got it wrong.
I know the state attorney. Just for full clarity, I worked for the Department of Justice for about 6 years in the public finance section. I dealt with many fiscal administrations. The state, via the legislative auditor, the attorney general, the treasurer, would make a recommendation on what the rate should be. But the judge would ultimately determine it's going to be X amount of dollars. So it's only a recommendation from the state on what it should be. And that's based off of the legislative auditor's research, how much time, the experience of the person, et cetera, the expertise, okay? So I can't give you a number because there is no number yet.
One question, a little odd, but who's staying to benefit more from this fiscal administrator? Them or us?
Oh, 100%.
100%. And you can guarantee us 100% our water will be better, be treated.
I can't guarantee you the results because I can't predict the future, but I'll tell you this. Typically, the last person that gets paid is the fiscal administrator. And if you don't think that's true, I can give you a couple names of people that have operated as a fiscal administrator. Yeah, the last person to get paid is the fiscal administrator. That's really why they don't want to do it, because it takes them so long to get paid. They're waiting for the money after it's done.
I think that's what Tallulah wants. I'm sorry. I'm thinking that's what Tallulah wants. The water to be better. You all will put a fiscal administrator in place. We need guarantee.
Yeah.
It's just like
So basically, what I can guarantee is that the limited fiscal administrator would do everything in his or her power to stabilize the water system, to come up with a plan to improve the water system, to come to y'all to provide that information about what their plan is, and try to execute the plan to give y'all a rehab facility or even a new facility, whatever makes the best economic sense. Now, when it comes to a rate study, I know there were some questions about rates and things like that. Technically, the city council can raise the rates whenever they want, or they can lower the rates whenever they want. It's only private systems that have to go before the Public Service Commission to get the approval. But with that being said, you want a rate study because the rate study does a few things. It looks at the citizens' ability to pay and how much they're able to pay. It takes into a lot of things into account whenever it makes the recommendations on what the rate should be. Okay, obviously, you can't charge an excessive rate if nobody's going to pay, right? So it has to be a reasonable rate that people are willing to pay.
When this is my concern. When you look at a limited fiscal administrator, the limited fiscal, you're saying they have to come back to the council and do different things with the council, but the council will actually serve pretty much, you just tell us what you're going to do.
No, the council can provide input, okay? And that's the key thing, is to have a good relationship with the limited fiscal administrator. And to voice your concerns to them and let them take that into account.
You guys sell that real good. You guys sell that real good.
I'm not selling
Let me finish. You guys sell that real good, like the council will really have a say-so in what happens, but it is not. No matter what the council says, and we saw that last night with our school board meeting, it doesn't matter what the council or the board says, the ultimate decision will come down to what the fiscal administrator determines. And I personally don't think we should do anything until we have questions answered that we had with GOSEP. Because those are issues that we have when where's Magnolia getting the authority to do different things? Where's money being deposited? We need to have those answers to those questions. And we don't have those answers. Because we need to be able to tell our constituents, this is what's taking place. This is why you have to do that. So there's issues that our attorney raised and the council has that has not been resolved yet.
And look, I think GOSEP can provide the answers that you're seeking when it comes to the funds. There's invoices that Magnolia has submitted for payment. The state has paid about $2.7 million of those invoices to cover, and there's obviously outstanding invoices. The reason, just to address something that you said earlier about the backdate contract, that was to cover the skid filter rentals from February to present. That's the reason why they wanted to backdate it, so that the funds can be paid through that. And really, the contract should have been between GOSEP and the city, and then the city should have had a contract, and that's what they were trying to do with the.
And so you can tell me, get the ski, right? You said from February to April, it was $2.9 million.
No.
That's what they said about payback. The back day was good coverage. It said from going to the contract, it said we would owe GOSEP Magnolia $2.9 million. And we would back into the contract. It said 2.9. And by the time May about $3 or $4 million. Can't hear you. No, what I was saying was, according to the contract,
That the city council was given in April. It said, matter of fact, the letter says they want to make the contract effective February 2026. The contract amount between Tallulah and GoSep is maximum, say, $2.9 million. The contract amount would have to cover expenses made in the plant from February the 16th to date. So it's saying that we're going to have to go back and cover all those expenses in between February up until May, when the contract came to us, and then end up spending, instead of $1.4 million, we end up paying $3 million out of that contract with GoSep. But that money's still going to come out of the water sector sub-emergency fund also, that 2.9?
part of this comes from the funding that there's already had. What that's saying is that the
Contract had expired. Okay, so there's currently no contract with Magnolia between GoSep, between the city of Tallulah. And so they've been operating without a contract. And obviously they've been accruing expenses that they should get paid for because it's on behalf of the city of Tallulah or the water system. So I can't speak to the exact numbers. If it's a contract amendment increasing the amount, it maybe went from 2.7 million to 2.9 million, and that's why it's saying that, to cover the skid filter is my understanding. It's the skid filter that they really wanted.
Can you say within a year's time? Within the year's time, we'll see improvement. Can we just stop like thinking of one, just 1 year to see where we're going?
I think you will. I can't guarantee, but I think you will. What I would say is, have y'all seen the improvement?
Yeah. Okay, so y'all can't drink the water? So obviously part of rehabbing the system would be to be able to provide drinking water to y'all. It's not just to keep it clean, but to have it drinkable.
I think this is a twofold question. Have you seen improvements? Is yes. Has it come to the point of being drinkable? Is no. You're only going to see that. The state has to, under a fiscal administrator, or the city should if it was under your purview. A new system or a totally rehab system will make it safe drinking water. What has been fixed now is to make sure a lot of the contaminants were taken out of the water, number one. And number two, in this last year, because the city's water plant by our now retired LDH engineer, every estimate showed that it's shutting down within 6 months to a year without the repairs that have been made, and our city would have had no water. So the last year has been a triage of the system to make sure it can stand and run for the next 24 months. So triage was a lot different from getting a new system or a rehabilitated system which would make it safe drinking water. The state came in the first part of triage with the goal of making sure the system did not shut down. And I know this is a new council, so I want to make that real clear. Under this triage they've been under, the goal was to make sure the system didn't totally shut down. The other goal was to make sure that you were not seeing days out of school, days off work, and things like that because the water was shutting down. So the state has been in a long triage moment of securing the system first. But under a new rehabilitated system, you would have clean drinking water. Councilman Wells raised a point that I raised in the meetings when I was first told by the state engineer, that we would do better going to another water source. And that's why those issues were visited. I think it would behoove the state to put something in, us, to let the limited fiscal administrator in his contract also look at other water systems that the old engineers may have missed. Understanding that whoever they bring in to do that review under that contract with the limited fiscal administrator, we will have to pay that as well out of the monies. But that is something that can be added as an addition to the contract. That's why I wanted to speak on this. When we say is the water better, yes. Is the water drinkable? Not yet, because you need a total rehab system for that. Yes.
Hold on, okay, hang on just one second, okay? Hold on just one second.
Listen, I don't like where the water is now. Let me say this. I don't like where the water is now. But what I like better is that we have water. Because when the state came in, and I keep saying this when I said it last time, it was 6 months to a year before the system was going to totally shut down. Meaning this city would have had no water. And let me finish because everyone needs to hear this. So understand the $4 or $5 million that has been spent was to stabilize a system that was on the verge of shutting completely down. And so now the state is trying to keep it where it is, okay, stabilized, and move into getting bids to rebuild the system. That's two different phases. We have said several times we are in triage. I give it to you like this. Maybe we'll understand it better. You get shot today, right? Yeah. So triage. That's what we are. Now we're trying to move out of triage since they have told us, the engineers, that the skids will remain stable, the system stable without shutting down. Then you got to go into now getting safe drinking water, which is going to require a whole new rebuild system. And that's where you have to be. So when someone said, can you guarantee that with a year, right? Okay, I apologize, because that's what I was answering. Because I think to build the system, every estimate has told us 1.5 to 2 years. What I just suggested, because I had the same concern that Councilman Wells had when I first came in, okay? Can at any point, let's add to the contract that the fiscal administrator will look at different water sources. The first one we looked at, the right-of-ways, which means to go across people's property with the pipes and all of that, and the cost of laying these pipes to transfer the water from a different system was at $30 million. Now, where I am with that is this. We don't have that type of commitment from the governor to fund a system that's being turned back over to a municipality at that rate, okay? But maybe this fiscal administrator can show us something differently. That's why I asked for it to be added. But the bottom line is there is going to be a balanced budget with the state, because we constitutionally have to do it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hold on just one second. Come, what we're going to do, okay, hold on, you guys, okay? Hold on just one second.
I apologize. I was probably out of order.
Yes, ma'am. What we're going to do now is offer the audience the opportunity to come forward. So here you go, Ms. Clark. Okay.
Just real quick, I want to say the issue with tapping into another system is the water distribution lines. And so those have to be fixed because no system's going to send in good water and it leak out. And so that's part of the problem. So the water distribution line, that's a study that's almost, it's half complete. So it can be complete. I think there's a little out there left for them to do. And then you can address the question about.
And remember, and I'm glad you said that because it's so much to take in. Remember someone asked the question, was it $26 million? We won't know the exact dollar amount until that study on your water distribution system is in. That's part of the issue with going back and forth on the amount. But what he has said, like I said, he's representing the governor is committed to getting it done financially. Yes, ma'am. I apologize.
Now, I know because one of my questions was to the previous council and to the mayor, and I kind of concur with Councilman Wells. How much at this point has Magnolia collected for us or from us? How much? Because we know there's no money being collected by the city for our water.
Have they turned those numbers over to your office?
No.
I'm sorry? But have they turned them over? Okay, has the council received a copy of that? Okay, so it seems, when I'm being told by the mayor, they've turned the numbers over, the council has a copy of that.
But Senator Jackson, we've been asking that question since the last council and we haven't gotten an answer.
Council, do you have a copy of that?
It's not a systematic approach to what they actually collected, what is actually went out.
Okay.
So we don't have a detailed accounting of the funds that Magnolia has collected. Just the other day, Mayor Lewis sent us some invoices that Magnolia has sent in the past couple of months. Some of the invoices came, there's no content to the message. So they'll go to accounting of what has been collected from by Magnolia on behalf of the city. Then my other issue, the fact that they do not have a contract with the state nor with the city of Tallulah. So how are they still able to collect funds from the citizens without a contract in place?
The governor asked Magnolia to operate under good faith that we would get this done. They pull out now, they do not get the money. And so he asked them to operate in good faith because of the issue with the skids. Now, we would have been here asking a different question had he not asked them to operate under good faith that this would get done, because the skids would be out of place and the system would be back failing. Right? And so that is the general question. That's the answer, is that we look at to prevent every emergency that may come up along the way. You're welcome. Yes.
Who determined the price of the skid for the lift saying? Who determined the price? Who determined the price?
The company. I'm not sure which company their contract. These skids are rented.
So Magnolia entered into the contract, and I believe it's the QSM, maybe the entity that's providing the skid.
Next question. So at no time has Magnolia or the state feel that they can go through the process of acquiring equipment for the plant, but don't share the information with the citizen tool?
I can't speak on behalf of Magnolia,
That's what I'm saying.
but
That's what I'm saying. What the state is also talking about. Because whatever they're doing at the plant, it should be transferred to the city of Tallulah.
Okay. The state has and I want to say this, the state, everything by legislative act now, for 2 years ago, that the state does, whether it's with GoSub or any other entity, is under the checkbook law. Which means you have a website you go to, and you type it in, and it tells you every move we make and every cost we spend down to the penny. The state offers that on a 24/7 basis. Now, if Magnolia has not given you the numbers you need, my suggestion would be to write a detailed letter to them, CC us, and ask for the breakdown you would like. At that point, if what they gave you, because we thought it worked, does not work, then they have to respond. And we're going to ask them to respond. But I cannot be here to talk solely about Magnolia.
No, we have to talk about this because they are a major player in what's happening.
They are.
So now, and even you weren't aware that Magnolia did not turn their finances over to the city auditor in order to be audited by our auditor.
I was aware of that, and then we asked Magnolia to turn them over, and they said they turned the finances over. I'm hearing tonight that what they turned over is still not sufficient for you all. Then I'm going back with your letter and ask them to turn over in detail what you request. We were aware they didn't turn it over. We asked them to turn it over. Finances were turned over. Tonight we're hearing that it's not sufficient. So the only thing we can do is say, hey, put it in writing. Let's make sure Magnolia gets it to you.
Now, you see, I don't want to go into a partnership, a joint partnership with the state for a fiscal administrator, but one of the entities that's tied to the fiscal administration has not complied with things that they're supposed to comply with basic law.
Councilman Wells, to be honest, I wish we weren't here. I wish we weren't in a state where a system was failing. Let me finish. I wish we weren't. But we are under a pending emergency with the skids now. We have been constantly on the emergency with keeping this system stabilized. Now, the unfairness to the state is this, and I'm going to say this, the unfairness to the state is this. We've come into an unknown situation, and my hope is that we get something stable. But there's no playing or throwing the ball here. The state is in at $5 million from GOSEP and trying to access an emergency sub-fund for $10 million. When you are in an unknown situation where emergencies keep popping up, where purchases keep having to be made to stabilize the system, we're not in a perfect order of things, we're in an emergency order of things. I do understand your concerns, I understand the citizens' concerns. I stand in the middle of the state and my constituents begging for money every day, which I should. But at the same time, when I know an emergency is happening, for me not to say the sky is about to fall on the system that we've stabilized would be wrong of me. I'm uncomfortable continuing to say, give money, give money, give money. But the truth is, if we don't do it, and what I mean is I'll ask for anything for my constituents. But sometimes when I hear you all have problems with Magnolia, it makes me uncomfortable. But the truth is, what makes me more uncomfortable is the water system collapsing, the skids being removed. There's no perfect world in this. And this is not for crap, this is true. There is no perfect world in this. The perfect thing would have been that this system was straight, the state didn't have to intercede, and the $5 million that's been spent would have been spent on economic development and everything else. But that's not where we are.
Now, I agree with you. We shouldn't be having I would want to get in, but we are. And one thing that we cannot do, because we're saying there's an issue, overlook the fact that a company's not doing what they're supposed to do. So we're in a situation, but there's still an accountability factor that those companies have to uphold.
I agree. I agree. But let me ask you, when was the last time your water shut down?
So now, I'm going to talk about public council. Now, when you begin to look at it, as a city council, we have to vote on things. And we all want clean, safe drinking water. We all want it. But at the same time, you don't want to be told that in order to get this, you have to go there. If there's going to be some help, okay, the help should be, I got to have a middleman in the place. Now, I don't know what past administration did. I don't know. Past administration probably got money to do they supposed to, that's not on us no more. But what I'm saying, the way it's set up now is, the money never comes to the state. So if you hire an individual or an engineering firm to do the work, you don't need a fiscal administrator in the middle to just pass papers.
But the state law says you does. And so you would be asking me to violate the state law.
I understand how long it's already. And I can look at a whole lot. The laws, whether state or national, are pretty much written to benefit certain individuals. So when you talk about getting right of ways on properties and access stuff, for the plant that we got in Richland Parish, they're doing just taking property in the domain. When you come to CCS, all that kind of stuff. So the state has means of acquiring the right of ways without having to go through a lot of stuff.
Okay, so I gave the history to start off, Councilman Wells. We had a lot of failing systems without enough state money to fix those failing systems. A number of those failing systems, unfortunately, are located in northeast Louisiana. But when we looked at those failing systems, the state was appropriating $1 million here, $2 million here. Every other year, we were appropriating to these systems. And for some reason, they still end up in failure. This is not just Tallulah, okay? And so the legislators said, we can't keep doing this. We can't just keep giving money at will and still end up with failing systems. Because at that point, the state was investing hundreds of millions of dollars in systems all around the state and not getting an investment on return for the constituents. Unfortunately, at some point, Tallulah became one of those systems. What we decided was to apply for federal grants through the water sector program that we created and put some state money in and put some requirements so that when the state continued to give money towards systems, there would be accountability. At what point should we be accountable as Tallulah, as the people here, for a failing water system when the state comes in and gives money? At what point should St. Joseph have been accountable, which they had to be accountable for a failing water system when the state came in? So what your theory would ask is that the state continued to invest hundreds of $millions into local systems with no accountability. Yeah, but that's why, historically, that's why this law has been put in place.
Right, but prior to, even you look at other grants, the way the grant process was now compared to historically, the money was sent to those municipalities for them to distribute how they want to pay out different things. The system's not set up like that anymore now. The money stays with the awarding agency. So if the state has $12 million, the city of Tallulah would never see that $12 million. So if they have a person that's working on a project, that individual will submit an invoice to the city. The city will submit that invoice to the state agency. And the state agency will submit the money back to the company that performed the services.
So under your $5 million of water sector money, which is non-emergency money, when you bid out and you begin to pull that down, that money comes to the city of Tallulah. That is a regular grant. That is a non-emergency grant that the city under the old administration has secured. There's a difference between an emergency grant under this grant and a non-emergency grant. You have a portion of a water sector non-emergency grant to the tune of $5 million. And it is going to flow to the city once you put out bids like the regular grants have. This is a different one. But this is how I'm going to end like I started, to be straight. And I'm going to answer constituent questions. You have a choice tonight. Make the choice that's comfortable for you. I can only tell you what happens when the choices are made. From what the state has told me. Magnolia has issued us an ultimatum, not just you, but us too. When they pull out, the skid pulls out with them. There is no other money right now for the state to tap into when we're not in legislative session, because we have expended all of GOSEP's money that we had access to for the city of Tallulah's water system. When those skids pull out, it damages the progress. Now, we may not like it. I didn't like getting a letter from Magnolia that I got through the city as you all received it. I didn't like it. It was a surprise to me. No one discussed it with me. But we're dealing with the cards we have been dealt. But it is your vote tonight. And when you make that vote, you have to make a comfortable vote. I only come to give you the report of the state of what's going to happen if Magnolia pulls out. The skids pull out, and that's what's stabilizing your system.
Okay. That plant can make water, and it can build water for the next 10 years. Those skids you're talking about, are those filter boxes you're talking about?
Yeah, look, I'm not an engineer.
We're only using their filters. Okay, that's the only thing we're using from Magnolia.
Yeah,
so if we get our filters fixed, we won't need Magnolia. The skids y'all talking about.
No, I think it's inappropriate for someone not to be able to ask them questions. Let me say this. If the city wants to take that route, and they so choose, that is their choice. If you just don't tap into this money, that is the city's choice to determine another route.
Is the skids you talking about, what are they called? Are they filter boxes?
We've always been referred to as skids.
Okay.
All the information.
We're only using their filters.
Okay, so what we're using out there is the temporary RO filtration system, okay? So what Mr. McNeil is saying, if the skid box goes away, then we go back to our own filters. However, let's be realistic about this, okay? Mr. Goods and I did talk with the vendor that works with those filters. The filters would need to be cleaned out, all of the media taken out, cleaned out on the inside, and then refilled. That's going to cost money. Where's that money going to come from?
Even with the filter boxes, okay, that's been in place for 18 months, our water is still in LE. Still clear. The water got it. I'll go back and forth. Even with the filter boxes.
Okay, guys, hold on, guys. Hold on just one second. Hold on just one second. I'm going to ask. Hang on, everyone. I'm going to ask the audience to hold on. We have a constituent up here who has something that she wants to say.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a couple questions. Now, I don't have the contract. I haven't read anything. I don't have access to that. But we're talking about the fiscal administrator, and I have reservations about it because of the almost unlimited control they have. Now, we're saying, if I heard it correctly, that this $10 million is for emergencies only.
No.
So, okay, I'm asking.
Okay, I'm trying to explain. The $10 million, $1.8 million automatically goes to the filter for 24 months because we have to fulfill that contract because that's how long it's going to take to bid out and rebuild the system, okay? That time limit. It can be used for rebuilding, but if any emergencies come up that's outside the regular collection and expenses, that exceeds that, not just saying outside, then you can tap into that. That was the same way with the GoSell money. We didn't think when we initially started out, Ms. Jackson, that we were going to spend all of the GoSell money on rehab. But this system kept breaking down and things kept happening. So that money was expended. Does that make sense? So can it be used toward that? Yes. We can't give you a carte blanche answer on what's going, carte blanche answer on what's going to be spent. Because we have to keep this system running while the system is bidded out and then it's rebuilt, which takes anywhere from a year to a year and a half after the bids are done and the bid is accepted.
Okay, now the fiscal administrator for me, I'm hearing again, I have not read anything, so I don't have access to all of that. But we're saying that once they take over, they can incur debt for us as a city if they deem it necessary for
within the law.
Within the law, but they still will have that authority.
Right.
So of course, we're assuming it's all legal. It may not be, but we're assuming it's legal. They can incur debt without the council or anybody having anything to do with that because that's their authority. We're saying now you're saying that the $10 million they can use it to rebuild.
Yes.
But we don't know who the fiscal administrator will be. But then I may have heard you all say that some company was suggested.
There was an RFQ pulled out. RFQ went out. I think we had how many people apply?
No. Hold on. She's talking about the fiscal administrator. The RFQ is towards engineer.
So under the committee that we went in front of to get approval to move forward as a state to get the fiscal administrator, they select that person. And usually they defer to the legislative auditor because he's a part of that committee.
Okay. And so I have an issue. Go ahead.
Concerns. You mentioned debt service and incurring more debt. No political subdivision in the state can incur debt without going to the state bond commission. So it's not as though the limited fiscal administrator could just go and get loans and take out debt. They'd have to go before the bond commission. Obviously, they'd have to bring it to y'all's attention too. It's not like they can just run rampant. So I just wanted to address that.
But to your point that you just made, you said they can bring it to our attention, but we don't have a say. They just tell us what they're doing.
Actually, the state bond commission is the one.
Well, the state bond commission does, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to go with the fiscal administrator. 9 times out of 10. But I know it's not carte blanche. I know it's not automatic.
I don't know of any fiscal administrator that's gone to the state bond commission to take out debt.
Okay, but they can do it. So those are things that we need to consider with the fiscal administrator. And we keep saying that the state, and I understand, I guess it bothers me when we act like the state is just doing us a favor. And I understand that Tallulah has The previous administrations, they should be accountable, but they're not, they're gone. We're in the situation we're in, and when we keep saying as if the state, it's just a favor the state is doing, and I've said this before, the federal government has money, the state has money, we are citizens, we are owed clean water, and the water, my water is brown on a consistent basis. I can't speak for anybody else, and when it appears to be clear, it's my sister came and she's like, Joy, it's Clorox, it's full of chlorine. So yeah, we're saying, it bothers me when we say the water, it might be something, it's not as brown every day in my house, but it's brown on a regular basis. And the chlorine, because it appears to be clear, is not a good thing. So I think we need to state that and not simply say at different times, we say the water is better and the water is, I've heard people say it's actually safe. Now I think we're all in agreement now that it's not safe. So I do feel a little better that we're saying that, but that needs to be clear. Because you have vulnerable people here in Tallulah that might actually believe that they can drink and consume this water. If some of these, the administration or public officials,
I think when the state gives an F grade, I know this, we're saying, hey, there's an issue with the water. We didn't give a fake grade even though we were here.
But it's being said. It's being said. I'm telling you, I'm hearing it.
Oh, it's not being said by the state.
I'm not saying you said it, but some of the people that are in charge are saying they're brushing their teeth with the water and implying the water is safe. That needs to shut down.
So
because we have people here that are not capable of understanding as much as some of us, and they will drink this water. They will cook with this water. And that's just not fair.
Right. And I understand the state has never said, the state said this is an F grade system.
Right.
We've said that. We're not saying the state, and nowhere saying they're doing us a favor. What the state is saying, in the circumstances that we find ourselves in, we're doing the best we can in grabbing money from everywhere.
Now, I understand that part. Then something that brings me back to something else you said. When we got the first receiver, I never forget, they were paid $400,000, I think, for like 90 days, if I'm not mistaken. And all they were here to do was tell us, which I already know, we needed a new water system. So that's the concern I have when we're talking about receivers and fiscal administrators. It seems like it's a money grab.
Well,
and then we're left here, and the system is still bad. And
the
so
receiver, let me say this, the receiver was here to evaluate, to give us different plans. That's how we got to the point of knowing the cost of running lines from the water source of Magnolia, right?
Right.
We didn't agree too much with him. So that's why the legislature went into session this session and said you should not need, the law has changed for this sub-fund. This session we said you should not need a receiver to tell you that. Let's put it under limited fiscal administrator. And that's why we changed the law this year from receivership to a limited fiscal administrator. Recognizing that the heavy weight that a receiver charges was not necessary if you did a limited fiscal administrator of water. And the legislature changed it.
So I'll say this with the fiscal administrator now. I think the contract can clearly be changed and some safeguards put in there. The fiscal administrator, I understand the state wants someone to govern their money. I get that. I have no problem with that. But the authority of the fiscal administrator, I have an issue with. I really do, because I don't think they need that kind of authority. They can simply just govern the state's money and make sure it's spent properly and all of that. I get Tallulah has not shown a business acumen with money. I admit that. I agree on that. But the fiscal administrator should not be given carte blanche to handle our water system, our money. Again, we're here with Magnolia right now. Magnolia is dismissive and disrespectful. They won't come to the meetings and even talk to us. Now, I will say with Patterson. Now, I've got to give Patterson that. They intended to come to the meetings. They came 3 or 4 months. I have their cell phone numbers. They were responding to me. Magnolia shut that down. So I give Patterson their credit. Magnolia shut it down. Magnolia is disrespectful. They are dismissive. They're charging us for flushing that brown water. Nothing is being done about that. They're not accounting for the money they're taking in. I asked the previous council, did they know what they were receiving? The council members, I think Councilman Wells did, he wanted to know. But everybody else was like, well, they're receiving. We are supposed to know they're getting our money. I'm paying 2 different bills for water.
And we just found out tonight that what they produced was not sufficient. So we're going back once the council issues us a letter and saying you need to give them this.
But what's the penalty when they don't? That's the thing I have an issue with. Magnolia is just running rampant. They're not giving us any information. They've done that. The auditor asked what they did give. Are there any penalties?
I guess the penalty is going to be tonight if the council decides to go a different way than the fiscal administrator and not tap into the $10 million fund. That's the council's vote. I am not here to force a council vote. I'm here to give a
I'm not
state
talking about
report.
the council. The state. Is the state giving Magnolia any penalty?
Well, that's what we just said. We asked them to produce the records. We
But you're
just found
asking,
out
because
tonight.
I don't like that they're holding us hostage. I know we're in a bad shape, but Magnolia should have some penalties for the way they're carrying out.
There is penalties under the contract, and he'll explain
Okay,
it.
tell me, because I.
Look, they can be ordered to give that, and each day that they don't provide it, you know, if a judge says you have to provide this and they don't provide it, they can be penalized. So, just so you know, any state contract is auditable. Okay, so anybody can be, the legislative auditor can say, give me all the records associated with the Tallulah water system for the last 2 years. And Magnolia has to provide it. If they don't provide it, then they can get dinged and have some serious problems. And obviously, you know, they go before the Public Service Commission. They're a private company. They can be penalized in other ways. But the point I'm trying to make is all the records related to this system is recoverable.
But is the state trying to get them? And I'll sit down. But is the
Yes,
state?
yes. And I'll be honest with you. I'll be frank. There's been multiple requests that have been made that were not timely for different things. We wanted information, whether it was GoSep that wanted the information, and they weren't timely. So I agree that Magnolia has been not responsive enough to the requests that we've made.
Okay, come on, so we can come forward. Oh, you talking to me?
If Magnolia was not compliant and the state was forcing them to do things,
If they're not compliant with the state law when it comes to submitting information to be audited during the city's annual audit, if the state was serious about getting them to do right, they would not still be part of the conversation. So now, because they're still part of the conversation, means that there's a partnership. And part of the contract gears toward Magnolia is going to be the third party that's involved in the fiscal administration. And that's why they have not turned over what is due to Tallulah. There's no way we should be having to write letters to request Magnolia to turn over finances for our water system.
We own the water system.
It's our water system.
Do we still own it?
Yes, it's only ours. So if it's still our water system, then our administration, our mayors.
But now we're not, I'm going to sit down quickly. The city is not going to have the impact on Magnolia that the state will have. And I don't think we need to simply say Magnolia will be punished if we don't get the fiscal administrator. The state should deal with Magnolia. And you all, that what he's saying is in that contract, it is, but you all have to actually go through with it and not just have it on paper.
And Magnolia said the agreement was made last year. In their letter, they said the agreement was made last year that they were going to get paid through the fiscal administration. So they was aware of how they were going to get their money. So that was last year according to that letter.
Okay, listen, okay? This gentleman, Mr. Rome, he actually was standing before you came up. Come on, sir. Sir?
I just want to add one thing.
He was.
If a limited fiscal administrator is appointed, they don't have to contract with Magnolia to operate the system. Somebody else can be brought in to operate the system. Definitely, they have the
Okay,
option.
my question is, no, I'm not talking here. I'm loud enough. I got a couple of questions real quick. Now, you stated that in order for a rate change to be enacted, there had to be a study.
Right.
He said that an ordinance can be enacted. Which one is the case?
Okay, so the rate study happens first.
Okay.
That rate study is brought to the city council, and then the city council passes an ordinance. What I also stated, not this city council, probably not the previous, there were rate studies done with suggestions to maintain your system before we came in. Because they didn't believe the constituents can pay it, how many rate studies, how many increases were passed over? It was 3 or 4. Two. I know it was, but I think it was 3 or 4, not just last year. We had a history of this. So there was a continuous situation.
One was made in December.
Right, but I'm saying before we came in.
Well, we got a rate change in December.
But we came in before December.
But I'm saying, but I got my bill showing that the rate changed in December.
I know, but you know what I'm saying? So years past, one of the reasons how this system got into failure is because when those rate studies were done and recommended to the city council, the citizens didn't want a rate increase. We deal with the same thing in every city. But that rate increase deals with the inflation of the cost of running a system.
Okay, but I'm talking about the rate increase that happened in December. I'm not talking about.
Oh, that was a study. Yes.
Okay, now my question is, this fiscal administrator, limited fiscal administrator, will her sole job be Tallulah's water system?
Yes.
Okay, because she has an accounting firm, she's doing taxes, she just started this.
So she can't bill you for anything outside of that.
Let me address this. So you say she won't collect the salary. So if her sole job is to be the administrator and she won't collect the salary until the end, how is she going to maintain her lifestyle?
I guess what
how is she going to pay her bills?
I think what you thought he was asking was here in Tallulah. Would she be a part of anything else?
No.
Under her
will
contract.
Her sole job be?
No, this is not her sole job. No.
All right. So with that being the case, she's going to be running her own firm, which she started in 2025, doing taxes. She has no engineering experience. She has no water system experience.
The RQ went out for engineering.
She has no kind of water training whatsoever. But you're going to put her over the finances to handle a water system.
With the help of the engineer that RFQ
What engineer?
Which engineer?
And what makes her qualified?
Which engineer has been selected? Which engineer has been selected?
There has not been one selected yet.
But that one will be selected. That's not selected by us.
But is she going to select it, or is the council going to select it?
Generally, the council selects it. Yeah, the council can select it.
Okay, so the council selected, but then you're also saying the financial administrator don't have total autonomy over making all the decisions.
No.
So
financial decisions.
But financial also includes hiring an engineering company.
No.
They have to be compensated.
They have to be compensated once the council once RFQ goes out and the council selects. And then you have the state engineers, because they're still under this limited fiscal administrators. The state engineers weigh in on everything too at LDH. So
now we got a whole big system that's being talked about now. All of this wasn't talked about. I mean, when y'all started talking about the limited fiscal administrator, it was just this person was going to have access to this money.
The state engineers have access to your water system even when you're running it. We do the grading. We tell you when you didn't follow the law. The state engineers are always involved. Every grade that came down before we took over was from the state engineers.
One question. Yes. Why isn't the state engineer included in picking a financial administrator that has experience?
LDH does have input.
People to try to provide names, and it's my understanding that only one person signed up to be considered. And so that's why I said, if y'all have anybody else that y'all know of or think of, then by all means make a suggestion. We can provide that person, and they can be considered.
Mr. Rome.
And guys, I'm gonna, after these next two questions, I apologize. It was our vacation week. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old that spends a week with me, my great nephews, and I told them I'd be 2 hours. They're very inquisitive. And we came back a day early so we could make this meeting. And they're waiting at home, right?
Senators, if you want to give us 15 more minutes.
Yes, but I would have to, at some point, because I got to get home to the children who I have with me this week.
Mr. Rome, sir.
Yeah, I'm Mike Rome, with the director of the Madison Voluntary Council on Aging. The main thing that I want to do is talk about the impact if this decision is not made to continue to keep the water system as it is right now. We will probably shut the Council on Aging down because we're in a very tight financial situation right now due to the insurance problem. Before Magnolia came in here, and before the water got to where it was reliable to be there every day, once or many times twice a month, I had to rent a porta-john because Board of Health does not allow me to open the council and have people there because they have to have bathroom facilities. If you don't have bathroom facilities, you don't have water. It goes together. I have spent untold amount of money having machines cleaned. The toilets had to be taken apart and cleaned out because of the water system before that. I have not had to spend any money on that since they took over. So I am feeding 150 people homebound meals every day. When, with the help of Birdman and some of the others, we take them water whenever we can. And we check on them every day. We also have 30 to 40 people that come to the center daily. Not the same ones every day, but they come in for the activities. That's going to have to be shut down. I don't have the money to go out and buy, get water. The extra water we're going to need for the meals, plus the fact that to keep the bathrooms or rent porta johns. So it's a terrible impact. These people that are stuck in their homes, they at least have running water now to flush their commodes and so forth. Where if you don't have water, you can't do that. It's not the best water, it's not drinkable water, yes, but at least we have water. So I'm pleading with you, please do not make any decision that will stop what we have at least now. Let's go forward, not backward. The other thing I'd like to address, and this is from my experience as county agent for 31 years, the Mississippi River Aquifer, which is what we sit on, is the best aquifer around to have a reliable source of water. Well, I'm sorry, if you disagree, I'm sorry. That is what our study showed when I was with Extension. The other thing that I have to say about water, I was in a meeting with the guy who is the engineer or works with the Warden system over near or the Delhi water system, which owns Warden, where the Bonaparte water comes from. There is not enough water there to come this way. Most of it's going towards Meta. So, there won't be any help coming from them, even if we had the money to do it. So that's the nearest one. Most of the river parishes and Vicksburg all pull out of the Mississippi River Aquifer. And it is the only one that really replenishes. They have real problems over on west of Rayville with the Sparta Aquifer. It's drying up. So, those are considerations. It is the Mississippi River alluvial, and it depends on where you pull it from.
Is it considered farm irrigation or drinking water?
It is considered a water source that has, like I say, what leaches into it from the other areas makes a difference.
But you brought it up. You said it's one of the best right. So my question to you is simply this.
One of the most reliable.
Is the Mississippi River alluvial considered drinking water or farm irrigation?
There is no designation that I've ever seen on what it's done. The thing about it is, all water has to be treated. This water is very hard, so it will have to be treated, which is a reason.
Is it considered drinking water or farm irrigation?
I'm not qualified to tell you that.
What is the United States Geological Society? I'll take it put it out. It says the Mississippi alluvial water source is 96% farm irrigation. They use the farm irrigation.
That's true. 96% of shoots.
Which means they put out a lot of water, a lot of gallons a day. And that water, the chemicals and everything attached to it from farming, goes back into that well, going about 150 feet deep. So now, what is really compromised our water, let me finish. What is really, so what is really compromised the water system is not what is transpired in the plant. Now, I got to put it. It is not what is transpired in the plant. What is compromised by the water system is what is going to the ground, into the source of our water. And that's what we get away from.
Let's please hold the conversation so that Councilman Wells can finish, please. Okay?
Yeah, y'all always about being disrespectful. Y'all feel disrespectful. Now, what really compromises our water system is what's going into the ground once you utilize it. So if you're putting...
Can we please hold the conversations, okay?
But what is really compromising that you all can wait for y'all to talk about is the amount of water that's being extracted and poured out of the Mississippi River alluvial to be used for irrigation. So then once that water goes into the ground, So now, when we do not have the proper cleaning of the water, those chemicals stays in the water. That's why our water system continues to be the F. So even with the proper filtration system, it's going to be hard to get those chemicals out of the water because those chemicals are going to take on water-like properties. It's going to assimilate like it's water. So when you all saying better, it's not going to be better. And that's why you all going to tap into another water source.
You're making some assumptions there that I can't prove or disprove at this point, but I will be happy to get the information for you. But the Mississippi River alluvial that we pull from comes in up north of Missouri and all that. Is where it comes in and gets into the groundwater. Most of the water that's around here in our farmland does not go down into the Mississippi alluvial here. It drains off the surface water. But and I'll be happy to discuss that with you and get those informations from the engineers at LSU and so forth. But my main point for being here, and my only point for being here, I don't even live in Tallulah. I live out in the country. So, I mean, I'm not here for a selfish standpoint. I'm here for your parents and grandparents. And I would like to continue to do service for them. And I feel like that they've had a really good run in the last several years. And to who?
Mr. Wells.
We service.
We're asking not to interrupt, then don't interrupt. Okay?
I work for I'm the director of the Council on Aging, and we serve the seniors of the parish.
So you work with the Council on Aging, or
I work with the Council on Aging. I'm the director of the Council on Aging here in Tallulah.
you said you would like to keep working with somebody. Who is referring to?
I would like to keep serving them and keep bringing. But if we do not keep a steady source of water, be it drinkable or usable, that we can't maintain proper hygiene and so forth, take baths or wash commodes and stuff like that, then I'm going to have to shut it down, and those seniors won't be getting services. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bell?
Good evening. I was just sitting, sir, what's your name? Come here, so come up to the mic with me, right? Yeah, right there on the mic. You get that mic, I'm sorry. You got the governors here, don't you? You will serve as his what?
Deputy Chief of Staff, excuse me.
Deputy Chief, thank you for being here. Because we need you to go to the governor's ear. That water is worse, that's like Flint, Michigan, y'all. No. Our water is just as bad as Flint, Michigan water.
Okay,
you can do all this.
Let's let Mr. Bell, please don't interrupt.
No, I said all this to say this. It's bad. I mean, I'm glad it's better than it was before, y'all. Isn't it better than it was before? It's clear. It's clear. But it was better than we had before. There are a lot of administrations messed up this system. A lot of administrations. We all can agree on that, right? Down the years, plenty of them messed up, and they did not serve the constituents. And there's a lot of people that we all know this, and this is the effect of 2026, right? So this is where we are. He got the governor's ear. It's a hell of a situation to fix right now with this council. But I need everyone, call your mama, your brother, your cousin, Pookie, them, baby, them, everybody in your family, and we're gonna press the governor to say we want a new water system as soon as possible. It's a tough one, no. Because this is just like we cheer at football games. We cheer going to national state championship games. It's going to take all of us to stand in unity to fix the situation. We got to go. I don't know, this is a tough situation. Because you got to admit, but the hardest thing I've seen is the judge. Y'all looking at Wells like he a bad guy. The judge said he didn't agree with what's going on with the administration. This is a judge. The judge said it. It was a lot of misconceptions that the judge said. Now y'all gonna argue with a judge? An appellate judge. He asked questions and the state attorney couldn't answer the questions, y'all. I'm looking like the judge is asking questions. We know all the situations, we know the water's bad. But the judge asked questions, y'all. The judge asked the state. And the state couldn't say nothing. And that's why Wells contested and Wilson did the things that they've done. But we need a new water system. It's bad, it's worse because you can't, if you bathe in that water, how many people have died with that water? We know this. So we need to press the governor and go ask Trump and ask everybody to go get the money from the slush funds, all the money that they find the money just in a big old bill, how many, 90 so many billions for war? I'm just saying, y'all, this is a state of emergency still, isn't it?
Mr. Bell,
yes,
the governor has committed to helping to get a new system.
I know that.
But we are, and that's why I keep going back to this. We are in the middle of a long triage process.
I know.
And we're trying to now move out of that triage process into bidding the water, having the city to bid the water system.
I know.
The one thing the governor cannot usurp is the state law and tapping into this fund we need right now.
I understand. What I'll say is, in future, y'all, for everybody, we're going to have to really stand together to get a new system. We're going to have all of us.
I just want to address one thing, because the judge, I wasn't there.
I was there.
I think the judge had a problem. He didn't realize if there was an emergency here or not. And maybe the state didn't communicate that there was an emergency here. And that's part of the reason why.
Speak up a little bit louder.
It's my understanding that's part of the reason why he ruled against this, because the state apparently did not show that there was an emergency going on here.
I was in the courtroom. The state did not come with nothing.
Yeah, and that's the issue. This state attorney, after talking to him, said that he did not believe because the city council had voted and there was no contesting the fiscal administrator by the city, that he needed to submit evidence. So this attorney went into the courtroom, right or wrong, because it was wrong. It was wrong. Went into the courtroom. He didn't even enter into the record the meeting in Baton Rouge that showed the emergency, is what he's saying. He didn't enter anything into the record. Were we all disappointed? Yes, very disappointed. When asked why, he said that there was no one, that the city council had voted to enter into the limited fiscal administrator. So it was his belief that since it was uncontested by the city, he did not need to enter evidence into the record. That was a major error on his part.
I have to speak to that, because I was there.
But let me do this, and I have totally overextended. This is a council issue. We want to leave and let the council speak with its constituents. We have given you the state's update. We have given you where the water system stands. You have to vote. We have to respect that vote. I don't think I need to repeat any of the update we've given. We're going to spin our wheels, but at the end of the day, the council has the choice to or not. When Magnolia pulls out, the state will have to deal with it as such because they've made their decision. What happens past this, I don't know.
I have a question. See, this is why I got a question. Because we keep saying that Magnolia pulls out, the skid leaves. So the question that needs to be answered is, what funds did Magnolia use to lease the skid? Because we don't know if it's their funds or whether it was the city of Tallulah funds they're collecting. And I just texted an individual, and they stated that a skid would be approximately $25,000 to $30,000 per month. It's not going to be $50,000.
I said somewhere around 40, and that's with the operators and everything for that skid.
I have a friend that does the water system. He just stated that a skid, a filtration system, a mobile filtration system, goes in the range between $25,000 to $30,000. And the biggest question that has not been answered is, how do we know if Magnolia has used our funds to lease that skid? Then they leave, they go. So how are you going to distinguish?
So I'll just tell you, from what I've seen, the water system currently runs at a deficit of approximately $150,000 per month. So it's commingled funds. The system that the funds that they collect on behalf of the water system, and then they've obviously put forward their funds to keep the skid here.
You're not whose numbers did you use to say that that's $150,000 in a deficit? Whose numbers are you using?
I'm using Magnolia's numbers.
Right, using Magnolia's numbers. We have seen nothing from Magnolia. Magnolia is the partner right
Right,
now.
we're working, we will definitely work towards getting you all your information.
You said you're using Magnolia numbers. Magnolia is a direct partner with the state. So the benefit that you guys are going to do, you're going to push the narrative that's beneficial for the partnership. Because the state stated last year that we're going to pay, according to Magnolia's letter, that you're going to pay them through the water sector emergency fund. So if the fiscal administrator is not in place, then the state can't fulfill their obligation. So you're saying now we got to go on the fiscal administrator so you all can pay your bills.
I'll just address this real quick because I'm pushing no narrative. I have no benefit in this. I'm here on behalf of the governor's office, and I'm trying to help the city of Tallulah and the water system. And ultimately, I will respect whatever decision y'all make. I'm not in any sort of partnership with Magnolia. I'm not trying to do anything for Magnolia. And y'all are capable and able to select a new operator at any point in time. And so I just want you to know, obviously, whatever Magnolia has performed for the city, it's the city's water system. Okay, so the state had money that they're paying, but the city ultimately has to pay its own bills too.
Okay, Mr. Watson, Mr. Wells.
Yes, I have a question for Senator Jackson. Yes, I understand. Well, I'm telling you I am. So, and you know I am. So my question to you is, you said that the state has already given $5 million to our water system from GOSEP. And we have a balance for $4 million, $4+ million from Magnolia today, right? From what period? So, Magnolia, in good faith, who's responsible for the $4 million? And the state is also responsible for continuing the services of our water plant under the state emergency, am I correct? We're still under state emergency, am I correct? We still under state emergency, am I correct? Well, the judge declared that there was no emergency because the state didn't prove that there was an emergency. My question was, and I ask again, are we still under state of emergency? Yes. Okay. And we speak about the $10.4 million, am I correct? The $10.4 million. There is writing or language in that particular draft stating that you can't use $10 million for any type of rehab to the plant, am I correct? There's no language in it? So the statute, but so since you deal with statute and you've educated yourself on the statute, what does the statute say about paying Magnolia monies under that subfund? that's the case, why did the state put in the order, the suit, the injunction, whatever it was, that they filed, in order to get the $1.4 million, you would have to sign off as with a physical administrator. That would be the only way you get the $1.4 million. There's nothing else that's, and the judge also mentioned that in the court hearing, there's nothing else in that filing that shows that Tallulah will receive another dime. So you're telling me the state is saying, and your office is saying, that a scheme, an oral system, is the only way that...
Ladies, please hold your conversations and let Mr. Wilson finish, please. I just asked them to be quiet. I didn't call them.
Yeah. The city hasn't seen a state engineer, previous or current council. And I think if the state has an engineer that's telling our senator and our representatives something that should have been shared with the council that makes the governing decisions, it should. And I was here. All I heard was a gift of gab as I continued to hear on the state about Tallulah water system. And that's the reason we're in the situation we are today. I can remember when you first got into office. Yes. When you first got into office, you stood right here in the Senate under, it was Mayor Hayden at the time. And you told us the city the state, we don't bill or give monies for water systems. That's just not what we're doing. So we don't fund. No, St. Joseph has a full system. And let me make this very clear as well. $26 million is not to rehab a plant. Under Governor Edwin Edwards, he had a report. And that report was that the Mississippi alluvial was contaminated. That was back in the 80s. In 1974, they went to our mayor, Adele Williams, and to tap into our water system. The farmers went to them to tap into our water system. And that is the reason that our system is called a farm irrigation. I know, leave.
Okay.
Truth is truth. Yeah.
Okay. We are going to go ahead and go to our vote here. We are at number 10, approval resolution setting forth legislative findings of the mayor and the city council of the city of Tallulah regarding the appointment of a limited jurisdiction fiscal administrator for the municipal water system pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 39:1358, authorizing execution of a joint motion and consent judgment upon approval of the governing authority and providing for related matters. Is there a motion to this effect? Okay, there being no motion. motion, the resolution fails, and we are at the end of our agenda. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I asked for a motion, there was no motion. Okay. Mr. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all.